one of the things that we found across when we're working with external evaluators, when they looked across all the network, is we saw that people don't have a real deep understanding about the difference between collaboration and group work.
Yeah, I think a really important place to start is that one isn't better than the other. And the way that we work authentically, and that's what STEM learning is all about. It's about authentic learning opportunities. And the way that we work in the world of employment is sometimes we work in teams. And the point of working in teams is to share a lot of information, work and try and build on the collective knowledge of the group of people, which is fantastic. And then there's collaboration, which is where we kind of leverage the skills of the group, and different people have different strengths and different abilities, and we leverage that to come up with an outcome. So we've seen a really good example of group work and collaboration working simultaneously in the one project within the work that we've been doing. One of the sites, one of the networks has set up their students to work and design and complete a game. And the way that works is within the team that has to create the game, each person has a different role. So they all rely on each other to collaborate to get it done. There are students who are in charge of mapping out the gameplay, there are the costume character designers, there's the coders, there's people in charge of audio. Now everybody in that group has a really different role, but they all rely on each other, they all need to be invested at the same level, and then they go away to try and work on this piece, which is a great example of how you collaborate to move forward. But when they do divide off, all of the programmers get together, all of the animators get together, all of the sound engineers get together, and then they work as a team. So as they sit there and work, they bounce ideas off of each other, they help each other out, and they engage with each other on a needs basis. Sometimes they'll all be talking, have a group discussion. Sometimes it'll be a couple of them, and then they build on the collective knowledge of that group, that team. And for me, that's a really good example of why teamwork's important, when you need to get the collective knowledge of a group of people to work on something in a way that will shift you all forward in a less structured way. But collaboration thrives on that structure of making sure that everybody's got a really important role. We're all responsible for each other. We're all invested and we have the same understanding. But our commitment and the way that we enact it is really different as well. So that's been a great way of highlighting them.
Yeah, and so some of the things that we've seen is like when they're working in groups is that they're working towards a goal together, which can be at times important, but quite often there'll be one of the people in the group is a leader, and so all of the decisions are made by that person. It's not distributed leadership like it is with collaboration. And when you also have collaboration, you are as Alex said, that you have all your strengths where you will be at times be the leader for a particular part of the process or problem that solution that you're working together on. The other aspect I think is what you really see play out is when you have group work, there can be times when one person in the group has a free ride. There's not much to do. So there could be a timekeeper or a record keeper. Whereas collaboration, what we see there is that everyone's contributing and working together and sharing ideas, sharing in the decision making. So it's a very different process when you see in action the difference between group work and collaboration.
In that example that I shared about the coding the computer game, it's really exciting to see the students, in that instance, they were able to kind of gravitate to something they already found interesting. So they had that agency. If they chose to be the programmer, they could be the programmer. But to move from that collaboration of they have the high level of knowledge in their group in that area. So for their group, I'm the programmer and I work in a really high level space here. But then when they moved into a team, that's not necessarily the same case. They begin to access all the other high level thinking of everybody else in the group, and they begin to get pushed in that way as well. So to see teamwork and collaboration work congruently is really exciting because the students, their agency and their comfortability around what they're doing gets challenged and tested as they move in and out of being the expert of their group, but then possibly being a novice within a team as well. I think that's really important because it mimics the way that we need to work in STEM futures, where we may be passionate, we may be working at a high level, but there's always room to innovate and change and to draw in influences around us. We're always collaborators, we're always feeding and learning off of each other. So to have a sense that we're always part of a big team, but we always have a responsibility to the project has been great. But to actually enact the difference between the two can be quite tricky. Group work's often the easier of the two because you just need to think about the outcome that you want. You think about the product that you would like the group to come up with, and then you kind of put the scaffolding, you put the system in place to help that group to come out with that output. And in that instance, you're often assessing the quality of the output, but then also the dynamic of how they work as a group. And then it comes up to the educator of how you've kind of set that up to be successful.
Yeah.
The collaboration is a little bit different because you need to have an intimate knowledge of how the task is going to be completed. So if you're going to work in a collaborative space, you really need to think about all the jobs that need to be done. You need to think about how many people are in the group, and you need to set up the system for it to be successful, to make sure that all of the people within that group are aware of what they need to do, how it's different, but then how they're connected. And that can be a really tricky thing for educators to work with in the first instance. Yeah. But then once you get into that headspace of understanding the difference between the two, you can see how valuable it is. And we're hopefully working towards a point where these our students can enact their own agency, and then they know their own strengths or they know their own passions, and they can kind of organise their own collaborative environment the way that sort of happens authentically when we're working in industry. So when we are working in groups, everybody knows things that they can complete really quickly, and everybody knows where the challenges might lie. And often we'll see a task being handed to a group of people. We know the bits that we can do really quickly and we can do really well, and then we'll go and do them individually, and then we'll kind of get that done. Then we'll come back and collaborate, and as a group we'll try and work through the really hard piece as well. So helping our young people see when you need to do things individually to help out your group, and when you need to be a group to work on the collective minds is really important, and something that hopefully our project and using STEM as a vehicle can work towards.